Welcome back. Another good week of QCCs. These are one of my favorite parts of the week, actually, is reading through the kind of questions that y'all come up with in response to lectures and readings and the like. One recurring question came up in the context of discussions about Facebook's actions with respect to ads and other social media, often in context of misinformation, possibly in the context of the recent presidential election in the United States, and the ways in which social media organizations, Facebook, Twitter, or others, can control the information that flows across its platform. And so you ask this as a matter of law, and people ask whether removing information or blocking information or flagging information has First Amendment implications, right? And so while this class is not really about that, I actually address this in other classes. I address free speech issues and platform regulation issues in more depth in some of my graduate classes and things like that. But here, because so many people asked it, because it's a really important and live issue, I want to spend a little bit of time in this response to QCCs on something called Section 230, Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. And I'm going to put that up on the screen, and then I'm going to explain what that is. Voila. This is the text of a statute in the US Code. That means this is part of a law that was written by Congress, signed into law by the President over 20 years ago, called the Communications Decency Act. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act provides a couple of things. It provides a advantage to entities that allow people to post content on the web. So Facebook, Twitter, any blog hosting service or any service where people can post material online is protected by Section 230 in a couple of ways. The first way is based on the text that's in front of you, and it provides as follows. No provider or user of an interactive computer service, and this is antiquated language, right? This is earlier days of the internet, long before Facebook ever, was a gleam in Mark Zuckerberg's eye. But the concepts are still relevant. No provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. So what does that mean? It means that if you or I post something libelous or obscene or illegal on Facebook or Twitter or a blogging service or a personal web page, the company that provides the service that allows you to do that, Facebook, Twitter, whoever, who provides that platform, that infrastructure upon which you can post that content, is not going to be responsible for that content. In other words, Facebook can't be sued if you or I commit fraud on its platform, right? So there's lots of ways in which people can get in trouble by what they say. You can post images that are illegal. You can post claims that are false and libelous. You can commit fraud, all kinds of things. You can threaten people, right? I mean, those are all ways in which you can post illegal content. But the point of Section 230 is to make it so that companies are incentivized to allow people to say stuff and not have to police it heavily, right? So Facebook Twitter, whoever, will not be liable for stuff that you and I or anybody else actually says, right? So this is a key protection for companies providing services that you and I use a lot, use every day, right? So no provider using interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker, right? So they're not responsible legally for the stuff that you do. Now, that doesn't that doesn't answer the question that several of you had, but it's an important first part of Section 230. Now, so remember this: they ain't liable for what you do. There's a second part. This works in tandem with the second provision of Section 230, which I'll get to next. The text will magically change. Voila. So this is the next part of Section 230. So remember, the first part said that the provider of interactive computer services, that includes Facebook, Twitter, other social media providers, and other internet companies, will not be considered the speaker for content that others provide, right? So it provides that protection. It also, Section 230 has that first section. It works in tandem with this section that says that that same provider will also be able to control the content on its site in good faith. So the provision states that no provider, no Facebook, no Twitter, nobody like that, shall be held liable, meaning they won't be held liable on account of actions, any action, taken in good faith to restrict access or availability of material that the provider, that is Twitter, Facebook, whoever, or user considers to be obscene, lewd. There's several things listed in there, so I've gotten the lips, to be obscene, lewd, harassing, or otherwise objectionable, right? So this is a massive grant of power to Facebook, Twitter, whoever, to control the content that goes across its pipes, right? So Section 230 giveth and taketh away, right? So it says, hey, you won't be liable, but if you want to control the content on your site, right, right, we want to incentivize you to allow people to speak on your site. So you're not going to be held liable if they say bad stuff. But we also want to make sure that you've got the power to control your site so it doesn't get just awful, so that you can censor content on the site, right? It's your site, so you can create your rules. You can create the rules by which content will appear. So you can make good faith efforts to restrict access or availability of material by flagging it, by precluding it, by kicking people off, right? So that doesn't restrict any, it doesn't violate the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, because the U.S. Constitution only protects speech restriction, protects people against speech restrictions that come from government actions, right? So there can't be a law that prohibits you from saying false things, at least where it's not fraudulent, things like that. But private entities, Twitter, Facebook, whoever, operating under the aegis, under the shield of Section 230, can do so in this way, right? So yeah, if Facebook, this is going back to the example from the agency laundering paper and other stuff that we've read, if Facebook wants to prohibit people from labeling themselves as Jew haters or anti-Semitic or racist in some other way, or post images or stuff on their site that is anti-Semitic or racist or whatever, they can do so. They got that power. Section 230 says that they can do it. And the idea is behind Section 230 is in my view, a sound, right? Want to incentivize the ability for all of us to get online and do stuff, right? Fair enough. But they don't have, they aren't required to let it be accessible. Right? Government can't censor. Twitter can. Facebook can. All right. Good QCCs. A lot of you had that question. There is a basis in U.S. law. Thanks.